Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. Today, we're talking about upcoming game. I guess a little bit of a review of the year that we've just had. I mean, what a fantastic year it's been to be a Fulham fan. But to join me to talk about Ipswich and everything I just mentioned, we've got Mark. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Hey guys, yep, happy to be back. Ate a little bit too much, drank a little bit too much, but just about recovered and happy to talk about all things Fulham.
We won't talk about drinking ever. I don't know. It just seems to be this time of year. Christmas just gets earlier and earlier, doesn't it? Like by the end of November, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, should we meet up for Christmas now?" And then suddenly, you've had a couple of pints, and then you move on, and it just every weekend. I don't know if you're the same, but yeah, fair enough. But Mark, great to have you here. And I mean, introductions. Everyone does these fantastic introductions for you, Mary, and I'm drawing a blank because everything's been said. But welcome.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. And I just want to point out the white wall behind you, Skibby. I'm loving it.
Oh yes.
Yeah, loving the new layout. Look at it. I like the Craven Quage sign.
It's like a 10-year-old's bedroom. So
yeah, but I'm loving it.
For those that can't see on the YouTube, it is. I've had a few bits of memorabilia put up on the wall. So I've got a Craven Cottage sign. I've got a Division 2 champions scarf. Division 1 champions from 2000 and 2001, and some decals as well for Fulham. So there we go. But we will add to it, and if anyone has anything that you think I should add to it, let me know. Also, send me over eBay stuff because that's the best thing. Those two scarves, by the way, the Division 2 champions and the Division 1 champions, was £10 for both scarves.
Easy.
And it came with the shirt that Mark is actually sporting, which is the 2018, I want to say.
Correct. I
Well, there
believe
we
so.
go. Look at my knowledge. It's almost like I know what I'm talking about. But no. Well, thank you guys for joining. And here we go. We've got Steve and Carl straight in saying they love the wall. And Steve saying, Lucky Charm Mary is back. Yes.
Love it, Steve.
If this is one of your first episodes with Mary in it, you're in for an absolute treat. Not because of her absolute well of knowledge of all things Fulham, but also we haven't lost a game yet with Mary being on the pod. So, fingers crossed, Ipswich is no different.
Big up undefeated Mary.
Absolutely. But first and foremost, we've got the Discord. Come on, guys. Join the Discord if you haven't already. It's basically like Twitter, but better because there's no ads. There's no weird clickbait stuff. It's just straight facts, all from Fulham fan news, all from Kish from College Tactico. It's really interesting. And, we're in there as well. So we might not be as, technical in our explanation about all things Fulham, but it's just a fan view. So we like to discuss things in our Discord. Join in. You can get that from our bio on Blue Sky, X, or just ping us directly. We can let you in. Cool. Now that's out of the way, we can talk about Fulham, which is fantastic.
Hooray.
I mean, first and foremost then, Mark, it's a new year. It's 2025. 2024, a pretty successful year for Fulham, right?
I think so. Like every season, we seem to lose a key cog, right? So we had the big Serbian bear a couple of years ago. We lost him. How are we going to replace him? Marco found a way. Then we had Polinia last year, and we figured it out with Lukic and Berg and sort of working around a couple of new systems, trying out 5 at the back. But overall, I think it's kind of been a year of what ifs. I'm very happy where we are. We're 8th. That's amazing. That's immense. And it's not through luck, right? We haven't sort of been like squeezing out games. In fact, you could argue that we've dropped quite a few points from leading positions. So I'm actually really excited to see the potential of this team, how much further we can go. Because one, we play exciting, attractive attacking football. And I think just 1 or 2 more key pieces and sky's the limit, really.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're quite right. And I think there's a lot of doom and gloom. I mean, Fulham fans are famous for it, right? As soon as anything doesn't stop, well, anything that doesn't go our way or we lose key players, suddenly we're like, we're going to get relegated. Tony Khan doesn't know this, doesn't know that. But I mean, the fact that we're sitting 8th after half a season, put it that way. But even going further back, I mean, 2024 we had a semi-final in the season that we lost Mitrovic, so obviously goals weren't a problem, which is fantastic. But I mean, we've managed it very well, and it's almost like, I mean, Mary, we probably had a reputation of, or not we had a reputation, but Tony Khan and Shahid Khan had a bit of a reputation of, billionaire playboys, didn't know what they were doing, just used Fulham as a bit of a plaything in London. But, given them time, and they've managed to sort of find a formula that's now started to work a bit better. Are we looking at a very, very well-run club in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think it helps that Silva's been there for a good amount of time now as well, because they've been able to actually set out proper plans, proper targets, and actually start to work through them a bit better. Gone is the period where we kept chopping and changing managers, understandably, because it wasn't working. But I think now that Silva's been there, and fingers crossed, like he stays a lot longer and we extend everything. But I think they're starting to work out what is working. And just like Mark said, like, we're playing such exciting football, not Parker days, none of that. We are attacking, we're playing quickly. If we go a goal down, I've still got absolute faith we're going to score, and I think that is such an exciting place to be in. I know there's been a time when we probably weren't going to score very often, and it was tricky, but I just feel like there's so much faith at the moment. And every game, I think I said last pod, every game I think we're gonna score, we're gonna win, and I think it's really exciting. So fingers crossed for a good 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just to finish that segment off, I think without putting you too much on the spot, best moments of 2024 for Fulham. I mean, I'll give you a chance to think, but for me, the atmosphere of the semi-final against Liverpool at home was the first time I'd seen the Hammersmith on their feet for 90 minutes, and I'd never felt an atmosphere like that since. I think I'd probably be going back to the Europa League days, when I think Wolfsburg was probably one of the big ones where everyone was on their feet for 90 minutes. Just there was a massive buzz around the ground, even like the wing. So like Johnny Haynes was getting involved. There was just a huge atmosphere. And when Diop scored, I think off his knee, and we were just chasing that one more goal, it was such a buzz around the cottage. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. But that was just probably 2024 for me, was just that kind of special night at the cottage. And hopefully it's the first of many. I mean, without putting you on the spot, who's ready to go? 2024 moment for Fulham.
I will start it off, and I want to also throw it to anyone that's listening, because I'm interested to see what they bring up. But I was also thinking of the same match as you, but I'm going to switch it up so it's not boring and the same. And the Brentford game, the Brentford game for me this season was unreal. Like, that winning London derby, 1-0 down, winning in the way we won. The atmosphere, we didn't have to stand for 90 minutes, so didn't have sore feet on that one. But it was up, down, up, down. It was loud. And the way we won was just, I think that was a good highlight for me. I'll go with the Brentford one.
I'm gonna piggyback Mary's answer, because that was mine as well. So goes to show I should have been brave and gone first as well. But you're absolutely right, and I think why is it felt so justified, right? I think Silva himself said it, but only one team was really trying to win that game. Brentford, very well drilled, right? So their strategy was to limit our good opportunities, which they did very, very well, and that's why it was so frustrating, because we were attacking, but it never really seemed that threatening. And they had two good opportunities all game, and one was a long kind of a speculative strike that was struck really, really well. The other one was the Fabio Carvalho chance in extra time. But the fact that Harry Wilson, he's been sidelined for ages, he comes in the last minute, he makes those runs. I don't know why our new strategy seems to be employing the guy that's the size of an Oompa Loompa to get in headers and score those, but it seems to work. They just don't mark him. And yeah, so well deserved for the entire team. So I'm probably gonna have to be unoriginal and pick that as piggyback that answer and say that's mine as well.
There you go. Joint
Got to
second in the
highlight
league.
Chelsea, haven't we? Though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to say joint second in the league for headers is not bad for an Oompa Loompa, as Mark calls him. But no, you're quite right. And Colm has come in, Chelsea being top 2, but Iwobi's winner at Old Trafford. I forgot about that. That drive away from Maguire from Adama, and the way that it hits the camera. I think there's something about that. There's something about the netting. Like, it's nice to hear that sort of sound when the ball hits the back of the net, but there was something special about hitting that camera behind the goal, and it swung and smashed into the advertising board. It was just as carnage as much as what you want from a last-minute winner. And Carl has basically said Chelsea game. I mean, I forget that because it was just after Christmas, it was actually in 2024. So we had some magnificent moments, Old Trafford, Stamford Bridge, the SIC Cup semi-final. I think just being one game away from Wembley, that was fantastic.
I think if we won... we haven't lost... We're undefeated in all London derbies, I think. I think the last 10. So is that the whole of 2024, maybe?
That's a good point.
I know this season we're undefeated in them so far. I think we're up to 10 undefeated in a row.
Yeah, I think you're right. But whether that fits into the 2024 is a good one, which I'm going to have to look up, or somebody skillfully look up in the background. But we'll see. Diego's come in. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Diego. But yeah, I mean, what a fantastic year it's been. And it just feels like it's getting better. And so hopefully 2025 is going to be a special one for us, and especially off the back of the festive fixtures as they were, how awful that run was on paper in terms of, we've played Anfield now, we've played Stamford Bridge, we've played Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, we've and got points from there. We've always got to fancy ourselves at home. So knowing that, we coming into this year or this calendar year that we've got Liverpool coming to the Cottage, we've got Chelsea coming to the Cottage, could even do the double over Chelsea. That could be absolutely a special year, wouldn't it? But no, I think you're right. So yeah, we're moving on to bigger and better things, and it's quite a run that's coming up. So obviously we're talking about Ipswich now, but we've got, I believe, Man United coming. They're nowhere near the beast that they used to be, and very realistically in an actual relegation fight at the moment. So that is kind of where we've got, I think, Ipswich, Man United, and some other relegation contenders. It's very interesting that we are looking at the teams on paper, which could be much easier, but they're the teams that we seem to struggle against. So, I mean, Mark, looking at Ipswich, on paper, sitting 18th in the league, you've got to start to think this is something that Fulham should win, but Ipswich are a kind of a different team, and they're actually a very good kind of ball-playing team, and I think they beat Chelsea 2-0 in their last outing, which is very shocking. So, I mean, what kind of things would we expect playing against Ipswich? I mean, we drew with them earlier in the season as well to give us some kind of insight.
Yeah, I mean, look, of the 3 at the bottom and of the teams that have come up, I think they're probably the best. I don't think that's too unfair to say. McKenna is a great coach, right? Great pedigree where he's come from. And yeah, you're right. I like that they kind of remind me a little bit, not in style, but in spirit of Luton last season, where they were really trying. They had their own style of gameplay, and they went for it, right? And Liam Delap, 7 goals and 2 assists for a struggling relegation side. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And on top of that, just because I like my stats, I like my numbers. His XG is 5.6, right? I looked that up earlier. So basically that means he's clinical, right? He should have scored 5.6. He scored 7. So he's outperforming his expected chances in a relegation side where he probably doesn't get that many good opportunities. And he's even the guy that scored against us, right? With that driving run and that really, really well-placed, powerful shot. So he's one to look out for. They have quite a few players. I really hope Calvin Harris. No, that's a singer. Calvin Phillips doesn't get a redemption story against us, because this always happens. We always have a team come in. And you're like, oh, on paper we should beat these guys, but suddenly they start playing out of their skin. So I think it's going to be tricky. I think we have enough in the tank. On our day, we definitely have enough in the tank. But sometimes I feel like we either don't prepare enough, or we get a little bit complacent. We've seen this with Southampton, and that was super disappointing. So I don't want another Southampton at home. I think we need to score early. We need to really demoralize them, keep hitting them hard. And I can start getting comfortable as a Fulham fan once we're have a 2-goal lead.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. And yeah, I think it's more on Fulham to turn up, and rather than Ipswich to sort of silence us. I think that is definitely the feeling going into this game. But I mean, a very, like I mentioned, a very good win against Chelsea at home in the last game. They seem to just soak up the pressure, counter in a similar fashion that Fulham did. So it was interesting to see whether, did we walk so Ipswich could run and not concede against Chelsea. But I mean, you look at their other results: a narrow 1-0 win to Arsenal, a 4-0 loss to Newcastle, which, I mean, Newcastle, Isak and co are flying at the moment. But they did get a win against Wolves. So they're showing that there are no pushovers. They're not, apart from that Newcastle game where they did concede 4, they're not conceding a lot of goals. So that's an interesting... it's what you want when you're down that side of the table, where you don't want to be doing what Southampton were doing, where you're just shipping 3, 4, 5 every week, and you're just sort of sinking without a trace. I mean, Ipswich are putting up a good fight, and I think that's primarily down to the manager that you mentioned. So, I mean, Mary, we've been trying this 5 at the back, very successful against Chelsea, not so much against sort of Southampton. How do you feel that Fulham will go with this one? Do you think they will stick with the 5 at the back, or do you think that it's time to sort of change it up and probably pack out that midfield a bit more?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because we've got to think who, I know we've got everyone back in the middle really, except for Berger. We don't know what's going on with him, but Anderson's not, I don't feel like he's at his best in this formation at the moment. He's better when it's a back 4. But then if we're going to a back 4, then Diop and Bassi were playing really well as a 2. So it's difficult if we go to a back 4, which pairing he'll use. But I think Ipswich will try and attack us. I think I watched the game against Arsenal, Ipswich Arsenal, and Ipswich just sat back the whole time. I think there was some ridiculous stat where in the first half you could count on one hand how many times they got into Arsenal's final third, and they sat back completely. But I don't think that will be the way with us. I think they are going to see this as an opportunity to perhaps get a draw, if not try and sneak a win. Like you said, they are scoring. They have got a number of draws this season. I think they've got about 6 draws. So I reckon they will come at us. I think they're going to attack. But I think we should be taking the game to them. So I do think we should be probably going to the back 4. And I think if we're talking about the midfield as well, Pereira needs to come off and either TC go in or Smith Rowe. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I think Pereira needs to come off for a bit now.
Yeah, he wasn't very good against Bournemouth. I think we mentioned it in the last pod where you could visibly see that Lukic just doesn't like playing with him. It's just so frustrated, so isolated. And the game did change when Kearney came on next to Lukic. Hopefully, if Berger is fit and ready to go, then I think it'd be good to sort of go back to the back 4, go back to what our familiar formation was. So potentially Berger with Smith Rowe further forward. But I mean, I probably wouldn't be too disheartened if I saw Kearney come in. So if we had Lukic, Kearney, Smith Rowe, I think if we do stick with Andreas, he needs to be further forward. He just doesn't work in that number 8 at the moment. I've tried to give him time. I've tried to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's something new for him, but it's just not clicking. Especially halfway through a season, you'd like to think that the penny would drop and you actually know what your role is and you'd be comfortable, but he just doesn't look comfortable. But I just do. I think it'll be similar to the Bournemouth game where if we start 5 at the back, we won't get overrun in midfield, but it will just be pointless. And I think the what I mean by pointless is that by sitting back, by having 5 defenders or 3 centre backs, it just means that the ball will come. Basically, we'll keep the ball. It'll be, I think it was 75% possession Chelsea had in their last game with Ipswich. So Fulham are going to have the ball, right? There's no point of us kicking it around with Diop, Anderson and Bassi just shifting it with no one ahead of them who can make some to be able to hurt Ipswich. So for me, I think it would have to be Anderson, if I'm honest. He looked the rusty out of the 3. I think Diop deserves it, even though he did make a mistake. I do think he deserves to sort of stick to his position. But it would be nice to have that midfield general, which would be Kearney, who was fantastic when he came on against Bournemouth, and just be able to hold up the ball, use it wisely, and just be that calm player who will be able to basically dictate the tempo. I think that will be key, because when you look at Ipswich's previous games, they don't have a lot of the ball. They love you to have it, and then they'll probably stick Delap, even though he's up front, he'll just sort of stick out wide, waiting for that run forward.
I think that's how they scored their second goal from against Chelsea, was from Chelsea just keeping the ball, and they went to pass it back, which we would do probably from like Diop to Anderson, for example, and they pounced on that ball and went and scored from it. So yeah, like you say, they will look for that.
He's a fantastic runner on the ball, but I do think that he likes to drift onto sort of what I've seen is the right-hand side, so our left. I do like to think that Bassi would have enough about him to outmuscle him. He's just such an athlete. Diop potentially could be more in trouble with Delap's running at him, but yeah, that's where we sit with that. But Mark, I mean, do you have any thoughts on the lineups and formations? Do you think it will stick to the 5 at the back or move?
I hope. Let me gather my thoughts, but I think we know what we would like to see. I would also like to see Smith Rowe come in. I think maybe sort of repeating what we said about the Southampton game. He needs to be able to. We need to see where he can do it, and if he can't do it against the top teams, then he needs to show he can do it against those that are sort of in the relegation scrap, right? Having said that, and I agree that Diop should keep his place, even though there was that mistake. Though Anderson is a better player when he's fully fit and all that. But I also think we know that Marco is a very stubborn man and he kind of has his favorites. And I think Andreas is on his 9th life, but he will still start. And as long as we don't have Berger back, he will be playing in the 8 and we'll try and figure something out. I really wish we would utilize Harry more. I think he has started the last couple of games and that's good. That's someone that can do the set pieces, right? So that kind of solves that problem. I thought your point on Kearney was really interesting. I agree. I like it. I just wonder how long his legs will last. Is it more of a first half play where we just play him for the first half and maybe up till the 60th minute and then pull him and hopefully we have a convincing lead by then so we can be slightly more defensive in our picks? Was that sort of the thinking behind that, Skibby?
Yeah, I think it's just more from the way that Kearney came on and changed the game for me. It's just, he just oozes class. And I think I mentioned it in the last pod, which was Andreas makes a mistake. He tries to make up for it by doing something Hollywood to make you go, wow. But when he's not clicking and when he's not doing the simple stuff correctly and everything just keeps going wrong for him, it just spirals and goes even worse. And I think to have someone like Kearney who can dictate the play, dictate the pace of the play, but also is a willing runner, can pick out. He's got a wonderful left foot, as we've seen before. He's also got a goal in him. I mean, you think about back to Spurs, just that lingering on the edge of the box and just picking up the pieces. I just think that he's offering more in that role, which Marco loves for Pereira, which is, when we're attacking, we go into this sort of flat four behind the striker with, Smith Rowe, the two wingers, whoever they will be, and Pereira becomes this extra attacking midfielder. I just think that Kearney on that right-hand side, being able to curl some shots from the edge of the area would actually work in our favour, especially against a team like Ipswich who would set back. But yeah, it's an enigma. There's certain questions in the world, and one of them is, why does Marco Silva keep persisting with Andreas in the 8? And this is coming from someone who absolutely loves Andreas, by the way. I think Andreas is a top player on his day, but when he's in the 8, it's just not him. But Marco will persist, and that's the problem, is he just won't find, even if there was, Berger fit or 75%, he'll just always stick with Pereira, it seems, at this point. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But I don't think there'll be any other changes. I think Wilson deserves to keep his place. I think he's still a fantastic player and on the right there, and Iwobi has cemented the left. So, it's now getting more and more difficult for Adama to come back in, and potentially even Reece Nelson. I know he's out for a long term, but it's going to be a long while before he comes back. But the question remains, I guess, is do we stick with Raul Jimenez or do we stick with Rodrigo Muniz? That's one of the key ones. I think, Mary, let's go with you. I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, I would stick with Jimenez. Obviously, both of them have got the things that would benefit the game, but I would start with Jimenez, and I just think he offers that extra bit of control to the ball, to the game. I know his ratio of shots to goals isn't as strong as perhaps we want, and I know that's something that probably as Fulham fans we want from the transfer window, and out and outright scorer. But for the player he is, I do think he should be starting. I think he just helps to control that a little bit more up top. And Muniz is excellent as a player that's coming on, and I know no player wants to be the impact player. But I do think, especially against an Ipswich who potentially will get tired at the end if we are keeping the ball and we are attacking them quite fiercely, then Muniz can come on and be that impact at the end when they're perhaps struggling a little bit. So yeah, for me, Jimenez to start again and hopefully get a goal.
I mean, that's all we can expect, really.
Yeah.
Mark, what about you?
Yeah, agree with everything Mary said, and I think Jimenez still has it. It's just not consistent, right? Like that was clearly a well-worked, drilled play that we made for the opening goal at Bournemouth, right? Like you said, Pereira on his day, fantastic delivery. The block comes in, Jimenez makes a run, hits it perfectly, and it goes past Kepa. And we've seen the other goal I really liked from him this season was against Newcastle, our first goal, where he just took it down. Shaw did not close him down quickly enough, and he just leathers it straight into the corner past. I think Pope was still playing then, but he still has it. It's inconsistent, and I think that's what frustrates us when we had Mitrovic, who had his own issues, a little bit of attitude, a little bit of mouthing off to the ref and picking up yellows, but he was clinical. You always felt good when he got the ball in the 6-yard box, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with everything you guys have said, and I think I've echoed it before, which is Jimenez just seems to be that bit more clever on the ball, I think, and that just shows with the maturity of playing Premier League football for countless years. So I think he just offers us a lot more, and it's a lot more calmer, I guess, more composed, I think is the word. With Muniz, he just seems to be, he's kind of like a Labrador. He just really wants to make everyone happy, and he just sees the ball and wants to make something happen, and sometimes it doesn't work out or go the way that he wants it. But, when it does click, fantastic player on his day. But I just think he is that animal off the bench, which we can capitalise on if Ipswich are being stubborn. I mean, who knows? If Ipswich are being stubborn and we're still trying to break them down, there's no harm in us having Muniz on the bench and throwing him on with Raul and just trying to get him to win knockdowns with Raul, trying to be a bit more technical and look for the openings. I think that would be something which we could look for. But
I think we are going to have to take the game to them, like you're saying.
Yes,
like I think we think about Southampton. I think it's going to be difficult initially to break them down. But I'm hoping that if they try and come at us a little bit, it's going to create openings and it will open up the game a little bit more. Whereas Southampton just sort of sat back a little bit. But especially after their win, I think they will come out a little bit more. But we are going to have to be clever with our play. And like I don't know if someone said it in the chat or one of you, but like trying to get an early goal would be quite helpful just to calm Ipswich down a little bit from there if they do come at us.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. It's like that early goal that brings the teams out of their holes. You know, once they're chasing the game, then holes open up at the back, and we can start to capitalise and hopefully get back to sort of the ways where we were enjoying some 5-0 victories. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it? But no. I mean, apart from Delap, I guess, Mark, is there any other Ipswich players which you think could cause us a problem? I mean, Omari Hutchinson being one has been sort of scoring as of late, but interestingly enough, it's not to answer my own question, but there seems to be sort of defenders which are unknown in the Premier League, but they seem to be clicking quite well. Is that probably more down to the coaches themselves, or do you feel that there is some actual defenders there who are leading this team and allowing them to sort of not concede as much as people may have thought they would have at the start of the season?
I'm not going to profess to be an expert on Ipswich's lineup. I think the only defender I know is Leif Davis, and that's a name that's been bandied around. In terms of who to look out for, yeah, you mentioned Hutchinson, Chelsea Academy, I believe. Mm-hmm. Skillful, fast, got a good shot on him. Stats weren't too impressive, though. I think 2 games and 19 goals. It's not nothing. I mean, look, he's a young kid, but he is skillful, right? So he is a threat. Sammy Schmodix also knows where the back of a goal is. International. He's good. But yeah, I think we do this often, right? We look at the other team and say, who would we take? And I don't think, I mean, other than Delap, yes, we'd love Delap, but I don't see too many I'd take from the Ipswich lineup and be like, yes, I want him at Fulham. Definitely not starting, but yeah, Delap being the exception, of course. But let's see, right? We need to go in humble with a game plan, aggressive, and I think with Southampton, perhaps we were just a bit too patient, and we thought it will come, and then before you know it, it's the last 10 minutes, and now they have hope, right? It's 0-0. We still haven't scored. They might as well go for it. So that's why, yeah, like Mary said, the early goals would be great.
No, you're quite right. I think you're quite right. And Mary, I guess, from watching the Arsenal game that you mentioned, Omari Hutchinson, do you see him as a threat come Sunday?
Yeah, I think he played on the right in the last game against Chelsea. I can't remember if he was there against Arsenal. In which case, it's not really a worry because we've got Anthony Robinson there, who is also up. Is he up for Player of the Month
Player
as well?
Of the Month, he is indeed, yeah.
Although I don't think he'll get it, but I personally think he should get it. But yeah, so if he's on the right against Robinson, then I've got no worries there because he's absolutely class at the moment. And like we said, Delap, and I think we're just going to have to be careful of those passes at the back because they will look to pounce on some of them. But and then in terms of their defending, like you were just saying, I think they've got a good mentality at the moment. I think they are quite close to getting out of that relegation zone. I don't know whether they will, but they are managing to hold on to like not conceding too many goals and like I said earlier, getting some draws. So I think they've got a good mentality and they will put up a fight. I think are they one? Well, a win would
1
get
point,
them out of a point or win would get them out of the zone, depending on how Wolves get on. But yeah, I think they've got a fighting mentality at the moment, which we can't underestimate.
No, and it's a good mentality when you think about it, because I think with teams such as Wolves changing their manager, Everton have started sort of picking up points. It's basically with the vast differences between Southampton and themselves, which is you could either sink without a trace. I mean, Southampton, yes, they drew 0-0 with us, but they are still really struggling, and that gap is just getting bigger and bigger. But a win against Chelsea closes that gap, and when other teams are picking up points and thinking, okay, right, we can take the foot off the gas a little bit because Ipswich have Chelsea today, they won't pick up anything, and then they come out with a 2-0 win. That's got to be huge around the dressing room, and especially when you start looking at that momentum is a big thing, and also that belief. And I think by being 1 point away from safety, like you say, and a massive win against Chelsea, they shouldn't start being a lot of belief around this team that they can pick up points. And unfortunately, they're now at the stage of the season where okay, we won't bother about the Fulham game. We've got X, Y, Z coming up. Suddenly, you're halfway through a season. You're in that relegation zone. Suddenly, every game has to be winnable. Therefore, they've got to stick to their game plan. I think there's a lot of belief in the manager. We talked about McKenna being a great manager, but I just think he's a great leader, because when you look at the team which he brought up, I think, and I might be wrong here, they got promoted from League One, and then it was like a double bounce straight into Championship to get promoted to the Premier League. So there's a lot of the same players, I believe, that have been working with McKenna for a while, and I think that is crucial, because we saw it with Fulham under countless managers, which was Ranieri and Slav, that once you build a team and no one knows each other and takes beyond 3 months to gel, and before then it's too late. But for them to have a tightly knit unit and a manager which they all believe in, and they've done very, very well to keep, that it will be a very, very tough game. So I think for this preview, what do you think the score's going to be? I think that's the easiest question to ask, not the easiest one to answer. Mark, I'm going to come to you, mate.
Heart says 3-1. Head says 1-1. I think they're just going to be really, really difficult to break down, and we're going to huff and puff. I think you have the right strategy, though. Someone like Kearney or Wilson from outside the box, if they're going to play that super low block, that's fine. We can just poke holes in them, and you take a shot. Can be a postage stamp shot, or it can be a deflection. They all count, right? So I think I really hope we have a backup plan if they play an ultra low block like Southampton. So 3-1. Let's go with the optimistic.
I'm on you, right?
And Mary?
Yeah, part of me did think 1-0 as well, but I'm not going with that. I am going to go with 2-1. I do think. I don't think they'll sit quite as much as Southampton did after the Chelsea win. I think that's going to encourage them to come forward a bit more. Whereas, like I said earlier, the Arsenal game, I watched them. They didn't even get out their own half for so long. But I don't think it will be like that. I read somewhere the other day that said Fulham are becoming a team that keep drawing, but I didn't really agree with it, because I know we've drawn like 5 games in December, but you look at the ones we've drawn, I'm happy with them. Like, we've drawn Arsenal, Liverpool away, Spurs away. We will take all of them. Even Bournemouth, I think that was a really fair draw.
Yeah.
Even before the game, I think I went for 2-1 on that one for Fulham win, but you knew it was going to be tight. So I think I read that the other day and thought the only one we've really drawn that we're not happy with is the Southampton game. So I don't think we're becoming a drawing team at all. And so I'm going to go 2-1 Fulham.
Nice. Some optimism on the pod today. I like it a lot. I think I'm going to go 2-0 Fulham. I think the threats that they have, I think we can counteract, especially if we go back to a back four. I think we want Hutchinson and Delap to be in sort of a 1v1 situation with our fullbacks, because I've got so much faith in Robinson and Castagna. if we're in a back five, I think if Delap and Hutchinson are running at Bassi and Diop, that does scare me a little bit. Not so much on the left-hand side, but more the right-hand side. But I do think that hopefully, if we're able to revert back to a back four, then a comfortable 2-0, I think that should be enough to see it out. But I think it's interesting what you touch upon is the draw situation. I think it's the game management, isn't it? We do concede a lot of late goals, and it is becoming a bit of a habit. And I do hope that it's something that is being worked on and we are going to see the end of. I think West Ham comes to mind. I think Man United, I mean, given it was the first game of the season, but still, it still happened. And Bournemouth being one, lapse in concentration, give the ball away, get hurt. And I do think that is a slight concern for me, I do think. But yeah,
I'm hopeful that like if Adama comes on as well, I can't see him starting, but
no.
I know he's not been in his best form at the moment, I'll say, when he is playing, but I do hope that when he comes on, or if he comes on that right hand side, that he'll absolutely go at them as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's his highlight reel, isn't it? It looks good because he's got this quick feet, quick burst, but his actual end product is just not there at the moment. And I think it's an interesting topic, actually. I think, Mark, do you think that's potentially a confidence thing, that he knows that, Wilson's coming in, taking his spot, and he's now trying to fight the inevitable to try and get that spot back, but he just doesn't seem to be the same kind of beast that we had at the start of the season?
He was really, really good at the start of the season, wasn't he? He was way more, I think, a little bit more composed, but definitely, yeah, the passes and the shots were going where we wanted them to go, and he was basically undroppable for the first couple of games. Yeah, I mean, to follow on to your point, game management using Adama, it always just seems like we're a bit panicky towards the end of the game, and I hope we could utilize our pacey players to put a little bit of fear and doubt in the minds of our opposition, so that if they are going to throw everyone forward, they know that we can hurt them. Because I don't think they really feel that as much. When we're under pressure, we just seem to get rid of it. And at one point, we're going to not get rid of it successfully, or we're going to lob it straight into their number 10 who's going to take a shot. And yeah, we need to be a lot better about that. It's really frustrating to think how many points we could have picked up if the game ended on the 85th minute.
Yeah. I feel like we've been missing Harrison Reed a little bit. That kind of terrier to come off the bench, protect the back four, and just fly in tackles. We just haven't had that kind of player to come on, unfortunately. But
yeah,
hey, it's how it goes with injuries. But I mean, I was going to move on to a topic that Mary gratefully knew that I was going to talk about and picked up very early on. But Robinson, player of the match, player of the month for Premier League. In with some fantastic players. I think Salah's up there, and others. I mean, just how, one, do you think he deserves it in terms of the actual player of the month trophy itself? And two, do you think that this is probably a bad thing for Fulham because it's now bringing him on the radar of everyone to say, look how good this left back is, being kind of nominated for player of the month? Mark, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, sure. The cool thing about Robinson is to see his progression, right? I was one of the pro Joe Bryan people when it was first a Bryan versus Robinson question, right? I was like, but look, Joe Bryan can curl one in and things like that. And every season consecutively, Robinson has improved an element of his game, right? So he's always been athletic, and he's always seemed to be relatively decent defensively, and now he's got that mastered. He's still running up, and then his crossing wasn't so good, and then this season he seems to just be the complete package. So you can understand why the top dogs of our league, right, the really serious, the Liverpools and Man Cities, and maybe the slightly less serious United are looking at him. So yeah, I mean, I don't know who the other players are.
So I can tell you. So we've got
go on.
Trent Alexander-Arnold is up. Gibbs White, Hoyerson from Bournemouth, Isak from Newcastle, Jacob Murphy from Newcastle, Cole Palmer from Chelsea, and Mo Salah for Liverpool. And can I just add, Mo Salah, 7 goals and 7 assists in a month. That's ridiculous. But anyway, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, that and the fan base, I think, has decided to vote for the rest of us. Yeah, those are some crazy stats. But yeah, good company to be in, right? And as we know, Skibby has his bias towards Andreas, and maybe those of you follow me in the Discord, whatever rubbish I write in there, know that I have a bias against Forest. But Gibbs White is some player. I'm sure he's been instrumental there. So you got to give credit where it's due. I don't think he'll win it. I think he's been fantastic for us. Probably the player of the season. Iwobi's been huge as well. And I guess one last comment I'd like to make is Leno as well. Leno has always been one of my favorite players. I think last season we were seeing some mistakes creep in, right? A few drop balls or a few sort of long range shots that we'd expect him to save, but he doesn't. Maybe he saw it a bit too late. But no such commentary this season so far, and he's had some blinders as well. So all in all, we're performing really well. But back to the topic at hand, Robbo definitely deserves to be on that list. Not sure he's going to make it with 7 goals and 7 assists in a month.
No, unfortunately not. But yeah, I mean, it's good company to be in, isn't it? But I mean, Mary, what do you think it does for Robinson to be to be noticed and to be nominated? I guess that's got to be a pick-me-up for him, right?
Oh, 100%. I'd like to think he knows that Fulham fans are absolutely behind him at the moment anyway. And you can see him oozing with confidence. So I think this is only going to absolutely boost him even more. It is. I don't think he's going to win it, but I think the fact that he's up there just shows that he's been recognised a lot more than just from us and his manager, obviously, etc. But yeah, I think it's difficult to compete against Salah when he's scoring and assisting. But then you look at Liverpool are Liverpool, and then you've got us and Nottingham Forest, who are not exactly where you probably would have expected us to be, performance and results wise. And I think you've got to take that into consideration as well. I don't think Robbo is going to win it, sadly, but I do think you've got to just look at the teams they're in as well. Salah is in Liverpool, so we expect them to be the best of the best. Robinson, like Mark said earlier, is just getting better every week, every season. He is the absolute full ticket now. Can't fault him. Even when he's not on his game, he is still on a very good game. So yeah, I think he's been outstanding. I think his confidence must be absolutely flying, and I don't think. I mean, it is going to be talked about in other clubs wanting him, etc. But I think he hopefully is well settled here. And knows he's very valued and has a good impact, and he's going to be getting 90 every week.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing, isn't it? I mean, it's a World Cup year next year, so it's going to be important for him to getting those minutes and just being comfortable. I think, it goes into a lot if you were to move into a big team where expectations are higher. If you're making mistakes, the fans can turn on you much quicker than the Fulham fans would. But it's just that settling as well. Moving into a different area that disrupts your family, disrupts everything, and I think it can take a long time, and that doesn't really get thought about too much. But yeah, hopefully he sticks around. And if you are on our Discord, you'd be into some news that apparently the feeling is very cool around Robinson at the moment. Man United can't afford him, and Liverpool aren't prioritising a left back at the moment. So supposedly it's the summer to look out for. So we should hopefully keep him until the end of the season, unless something absolutely drastic changes. But no, I mean, that's some good points. They're fantastic points. And I think, I don't think he's going to win it. I don't know whether you guys know, but the Player of the Month now is sponsored by EA Sports. So if you vote for the Player of the Month, you get a special FIFA card. So all these FIFA players all around the world can vote, and if they want a certain player to fit into their team, they're just going to vote for them. So look for Salah, look for Trent, job done, basically. And I hate it. I personally think it's the
defeats
worst
the whole
thing.
object of it.
Oh, I think Rodrigo Muniz was up for it twice, and he didn't win the first month, because there was someone very key. I think it might have even been Salah. But, you know, there's these players which people love to put in these FIFA teams that just ruins all the voting, and I completely hate it. I think it should go back to a panel, or at least, I think it used to be BBC Match of the Day. I think their panel voted on who they thought should be the player of the month. And I think it means more, right? It means more when ex-pros are saying, mate, you're having a fantastic month, like, here's your reward. Like, surely that would make you feel a lot better than, a load of gamers voted and here's your reward, and like, oh, brilliant. But I mean, it was a miracle that we even got the Muniz one. At least that was something. I think that was the first player of the month that we had since Schwarzer, I think.
I liked him.
Yeah. So,
but on the topic of goalies, though, I forgot to latch on to what Mark said. Leno, I think, has been superb again this season. Every game, and he has made some like goal-stopping moments. Even in the Bournemouth game, there was a one-on-one. I don't think it was shown on Match of the Day either, but in the second half, and it was, if he timed it wrong, it would have been a penalty. If he mistimed it completely, maybe they would have scored. But it was perfect, and he got the ball. And I just think he's been a massive part of our success as well this season.
Yeah, and it's a worry though, if he gets injured, who comes in? Touch wood, that's not happening. But I mean, that brings me to a very, very small segment to finish off the show, I think, which is January. The transfer window is now, they're open. The floodgates are open. Everyone wants to be a Fulham fan, or a Fulham player rather, Fulham fan as well. So what do you think? And I'll probably start with you, Mark. What do you think is the primary, if we can? I know it's a very tough window to get players in, but if we can, where would you strengthen? Give me one player, one place that you think is a priority.
I'm gonna go with the super safe pick of centre forward. I think that's probably the final piece. When I look at our squad, and this is not to rag on Raul and Muniz. They are good, but they're just inconsistent. Muniz is a little raw. Raul's not getting any younger, and he needs to be more clinical. But if we could get a £30 million plus centre forward who we could guarantee 90 minutes, playing in the best league in the world, always on the team sheet and a good salary, I think that takes us to the next level. And I think that's super exciting, because then it's not always about us having to execute our game plan to perfection and chipping in goals from the 10 and the 8 and the wings. If we have that scary person, right, that Bruno Fernandes or that Cole Palmer or that Ollie Watkins, if you have that threat that either occupies two center backs and frees up the other players to make plays, or they can create a moment of magic in a game that would have otherwise ended 0-0. And yeah, I think that gets us very, very close, if not straight into a lower European spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Mary, can I persuade you not to pick striker?
Okay.
No, you can go with whatever you like.
I was going to go striker, but I was going to just add that I'd want someone that can just continue our playing style at the moment, not someone that needs the ball lumped up to them or whatever it is. And we want someone that can just continue our attacking, fast play, because I think we've really established ourselves like that, and it's looking good. We're liking it as fans, but it's suiting the players we've got as well. So someone that can just continue that, and like you say, just be a bit more clinical and trusting to get those goals that we need when it's tight. But if I go away from a centre forward, I would just say maybe a central midfielder, just someone to just is whilst we've had injuries in there and Smith Rowe out and Berger out, and I know they're coming back and Smith Rowe's back, but is it as strong as it could be? It probably could be a bit stronger, perhaps. So, I mean, I'm happy with what we've got. I mean, we're all happy with where we are in the league, so we're doing something well with the team, or Marco's doing something well. But I think that could be a position that we could explore a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. And I think when I look at this team and I look around the league, I look at the Tonales, I look at the Tielemans, I look at, even like Will Hughes at Palace. Like, you were just missing that kind of that centre mid that can basically help us transition from a defence into attack in a click of a finger. And I think that player could really make or break us. I do think that could, or really change us, if I'm honest. I think Pereira's just not doing the job. Kearney hasn't got the legs anymore. And I do think that if we can bring in the centre mid, I do think that we could potentially rely on Raul and Muniz to get us to the end of the season. But I do understand what you're saying about if we bring in that striker, it does elevate us when we're not thinking about, okay, do we start Muniz? Do we bring him on? Do we start Raul? That shouldn't be a question anymore. We should just have a striker, a number 9 who has solidified that place and just said he is in fantastic form. He'll get you goals. Like Evan Nilsson at Bournemouth, he was an absolute thorn in our side. He was really annoying to watch because he was a fantastic player. So, I mean, going off the back of that, there's been a few names floating around. Evan Ferguson at Brighton, Beto at Everton, Dominic Calvert-Lewin at Everton, and fantastic points if you know who I'm talking about here, but Igor Jesus in Brazil, 23-year-old striker, if you think he's the one. Out of those names, who would you welcome in and why? Mary, let's come back to you.
Oh, what a question. I can't really comment. I want to look into them a little bit more, to be honest. I don't know, whichever one will just suit our playing style the best, but help us to
Would
play
you not
quickly.
fancy someone who's a slightly different? So if we've got Muniz and Raul as kind of the strong hold-up play, would you not fancy someone a little bit different who's a bit pacier, a bit more lighter, and think of trying to get in behind? Or do you think that if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing?
No, I do think we should be having someone like that can get in behind and looks for those runs through a little bit more. And I do still think that is the way that we are looking to play, because we do make cutting balls like that for like Wilson and that. So I would like to see someone with that movement up top, or someone in the midfield that, like you said, is just going to help us play and transition a little bit quicker. We've got Kearney, who's outstanding on the ball, and like we've all said, absolutely changed the game last game. But can we find that but a little bit quicker? But yes, nice. I haven't really answered your question.
That's fine. There's always got to be one on the fence. Mark?
I'm going to go for a contrarian pick. We were linked with Beto at one point, weren't we? Or was that just lazy journalism?
We were. I don't know why anything came of it, but
I think the ingredients are there, right? I'm not saying it would definitely work, but Portuguese, big man. You could see how delighted he was when he scored against us the last minute. Devastating, but
bastard.
So yeah, exactly. But basically, he cares and he tries, right? And I think that's something you want. You don't want someone who sulks and sort of like gives up halfway through a match because they're not getting service. I'm not saying our boys are like that now, not at all, right? But that should be like a non-negotiable, someone that's going to battle the full 90. So he has that. He's Portuguese. He's a big man. He can occupy center backs. Could be interesting. I don't know if it'd be on a permanent or a loan. I see what you're saying about having the smooth, silky, fast player that links up play. That's more attractive, I'd say. But all goals count, right? If it's a messy header. And you know what I haven't seen from us this season, which I think Mitro was pretty good at this. But I want to see some more poachers goals, right? When we know we're up against a dodgy keeper, someone that's going to fumble, someone that's going to panic. They might stop the initial shot, but it will spill. I've seen Muniz go for it, but he was a little bit too late. And I think when he's on fire, he picks up that ball and he beats the defender. But I forget which match it was, but someone spilled and the defender got to it first. But a firing Muniz, he would have beat the defender there. And those opportunities will come, but you need a striker that has that sort of experience and that hunger and like anticipates a spilled ball. And then that's not an easy goal, but that's an opportunity that we can capitalize on, right?
No, you're quite right. I think this comes back to how we're playing with Smith Rowe. He drifts too left for me. When we had Andreas Pereira more centrally, he occupied as centre back and allowed Muniz to a bit more freedom to get these poachers goals and get across his man. And you're quite right that we're just not seeing that at the moment. And I do feel it is potentially this tactical shift that we've had without Palhinha. We're starting to see that we're occupying the more wider spaces rather than getting bodies in the box. But I think, yeah, you're quite right. But I mean, Beto, interestingly enough, his profile at Udinese when we were looking at him and before he went to Everton, it was so like for like Mitrovic. It was uncanny. It was like the aerial duels, the link up, the assists, basically what he brings to the team more than just goals. And I do think that is an interesting move to make, but I do think he's too like for like with Raul and Rodrigo. Is he actually better than them? I'm not too sure. The Calvert-Lewin one's an interesting one because he was on the cusp of England at one point. But again, he's another striker that every striker that I talked about is very much when they're hot, they are hot, man. They are top property, the best strikers in the league. But when they're cold, you just can't get them started. And this is what we're finding with Muniz and Raul, I think, is the inconsistencies. And I just see the same inconsistencies for an Everton striker in Beto and Calvert-Lewin. For why are they not firing Everton up the table, and why should we take a chance on them? I do think that's a bit of a concern for me, and I do apologise. My dog is going absolutely crazy, so I'm not sure why he's probably a massive Calvert-Lewin fan and doesn't like me slating him, but there you go. But no, that's an interesting point. So hopefully a striker is on the shopping list. Well, I think we've run our course on this show today, and I do thank you guys for joining. Everyone in the comments as well. Well, yeah, I'm loving all the input. Just a late shout there from Colm. Buen dia. That's an interesting one. I believe at Villa, but I think he's more central / winger. I'm not too sure. I think he's more winger, but yeah, maybe, but we'll see. Well, Mark, thank you very much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure, Skibby. Thanks for hosting.
No worries at all. And Mary, thank you very much. And, well, this could be one of our... We won't see you for a bit because you're back at work. But we thank you for your time over the festive period and thank you for your input. But we will have you back on. So don't worry, everyone. This isn't Mary's last ever show.
I will be back. No, back to normal routine. Got a match on Sunday and then back to teaching on Monday, so
lovely.
Back to the usual routine. But I've loved being on over the festive periods. Lots of positive things to talk about, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. So, big game Sunday. Sunday. Sorry, I'm still in like Christmas mode. I don't know what day it is. Sunday. Big game Sunday. Hopefully the 3 points. And as always, come on, you Whites.
Come on, you Whites.
You Whites.